Clearfield Doctrine 15 comments Clearfield Doctrine and Quat governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private, corporate commercial paper, Federal Reserve notes, and securities checks is concerned. For purposes of suit, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government, and Quat Clearfield Trust Co. v. United States 318 U.S. 363-371, 1942. What the Clearfield Doctrine is saying is that when private commercial paper is used by corporate government, then government loses its sovereignty status and becomes no different than a mere private corporation. As such, government then becomes bound by the rules and laws that govern private corporations, which means that if they intend to compel an individual to some specific performance based upon its corporate statutes or corporation rules, then the government, like any private corporation, must be the holder in due course of a contract or other commercial agreement between it and the one upon whom demands for specific performance are made. And further, the government must be willing to enter the contract or commercial agreement into evidence before trying to get to the court to enforce its demands, called statutes. This case is very important because it is the 1942 case after the Erie R.V. Tompkins 304 U.S. 64, 1938 case in which the legislatures and judiciary changed from legislating under in quat public law in quat, which was in consonance with the Constitution, to legislating under in quat public policy in quat according to the wishes of the in quat creditors of the U.S. corporation in quat. Wealthy banks, dominated by the privately owned, Rothschild-controlled Bank of England, Lloyd's of London, the London Stock Exchange, and the offices of most of the leading international trading concerns, such as the British Invisibles, I kid you not. Here, also, is located Fleet Street, the heart and core of the newspaper and publishing worlds. Federal Reserve Directors, a study of corporate and banking influence, published 1983. The J. Henry Schroeder Banking Company chart encompasses the entire history of the 20th century, embracing as it does the program Belgium Relief Commission, which provisioned Germany from 1915 to 1918 and dissuaded Germany from seeking peace in 1916, financing Hitler in 1933 so as to make a Second World War possible, backing the presidential campaign of Herbert Hoover, and even at the present time, having two of its major executives of its subsidiary firm, Bechtel Corporation, serving as Secretary of Defense and Secretary of State in the Reagan administration. The head of the Bank of England since 1973, Sir Gordon Richardson, Governor of the Bank of England controlled by the House of Rothschild, was chairman of J. Henry Schroeder Wagon Company of London from 1963 to 72, and director of J. Henry Schroeder, New York, and Schroeder Banking Corporation, New York, as well as Lloyd's Bank of London, and Rolls-Royce. He maintains a residence on Sutton Place in New York City, and is head of NQuat, the London connection. NQuat can be said to be the single most influential banker in the world. Only 3 countries left with a Rothschild central bank. The Rothschild family is slowly but surely having their central banks established in every country of this world, giving them incredible amount of wealth and power. In the year of 2000, there were 7 countries without a Rothschild-owned central bank: Afghanistan, Iraq, Sudan, Libya, Cuba, North Korea, Iran. It is not a coincidence that these countries, which are listed above, were and are still being under attack by the Western media, since one of the main reasons these countries have been under attack in the first place is because they do not have a Rothschild-owned central bank yet. The first step in having a central bank established in a country is to get them to accept an outrageous loans, which puts the country in debt of the central bank and under the control of the Rothschilds. If the country does not accept the loan, the leader of this particular country will be assassinated and a Rothschild-aligned leader will be put into the position, and if the assassination does not work, the country will be invaded and have a central bank established with force, all under the name of terrorism. Rothschild-owned central bank. Central banks are illegally created private banks that are owned by the Rothschild banking family. The family has been around for more than 230 years and has slithered its way into each country on this planet, threatened every world leader and their governments and cabinets with physical and economic death and destruction, and then emplaced their own people in these central banks to control and manage each country's pocketbook. Worse, the Rothschilds also control the machinations of each government at the macro level, not concerning themselves with the daily vicissitudes of our individual personal lives. Except when we get too far out of line. The only countries left in 2003 without a central bank owned by the Rothschild family were Sudan, Libya, Cuba, North Korea, Iran. The attacks of September 11th were an inside job to invade Afghanistan and Iraq to then establish a central bank in those countries. The only countries left in 2011 without a central bank owned by the Rothschild family are Cuba, North Korea, Iran. After the instigated protests and riots in the Arab countries, the Rothschild finally paved their way into establishing central banks and getting rid of many leaders, which put them into more power.